so lie we, not as sleep that lies by death, with heavy kisses and with happy breath, not as man lies by woman when the bride laughs low for love's sake, and the tears and the words he saith. For she lies laughing low with love, she lies and turns his kisses on her lips to sighs, to sighing sound of lips unsatisfied, and the sweet tears are tender with her eyes. Ah, not as they, but as the souls that were slain in the old time, having found her fair, who sleeping with her lips upon their eyes, heard sudden serpents hiss across her hair. An atheist, a revolutionary, and the Englishman who discovered two really important poets, William Blake, about whom he wrote, and Walt Whitman, whom he saw as a fellow rebel against sexual repression, against political authoritarianism and hierarchy. Wonderful poem of Swinburne, "Send but a song over seas for us, heart of all hearts that are free," to Whitman. Interesting dude. 1860s, hip young people wanting to be with it, wanting to rebel against their parents, wanting to rebel against the vicar, wanting to come into their own intellectually. What were they reading? They were reading Algernon Charles Swinburne. He was the Shelley, he was the Jack Kerouac of his time. And finally, he was more fortunate than Smart or Coleridge. Somebody took him in hand and rationed his opium intake, and he became very reclusive, bookish, and more reactionary and jingoistic. So he was fiercely in favor of every imperial war England waged. Out of time, we've got 3 minutes. Anybody have any questions?
I can't understand why religion had an upsurge after the Romantics and before Swinburne. I don't understand the belief when atheism...
Social cohesion. So, yeah, authority. Social cohesion and authority.
Repeat the question. Repeat the question. People didn't hear.
Okay, question here. Why religion had an upsurge after the Romantics? Because the consequences of getting rid of it seemed to be constant warfare, and Burke had come along with the idea, you need religion as the glue that holds society.
But you said they were devout, so it wasn't just intellectual or convenient.
As I said, the Victorians are split.
Yeah.
And some of them respond to that split, that insecurity, by devoutness. But devoutness is not the same thing in the 17th century, the 18th century, the 19th century, the 20th century. However devout you are, it's not timeless. It is a response, one type of response or another, to your times and to the position of religion in times, and to the degree that religion can be seen either as an escape from your times or a way of coping with your times, or as a road to advancement, as it frequently is. Yes?
I think you said you wanted to say more about Matthew Arnold.
The poem I sent you is the first free verse poem in English. Dover Beach. The first free verse poem in English. You'll notice that in the poem he mentions Sophocles. Sophocles did something similar, and he's quoting Sophocles at certain moments in the poem. So he's, again, robing himself in the classics, okay? Sophocles did it, I can do it. But it is the first free verse poem in English. The French were already beginning to experiment with vers libre. He himself, very interesting poet. Auden said of him, his gift knew what he was, a dark, disordered city. But he couldn't allow it. His father had been a very important Victorian headmaster of Eton. Very important cultural figure. And Arnold, as he develops, he becomes himself a pillar of the establishment, and he gives up writing poetry. Highly intelligent man, very important critic, but strange poet, very strange poet. He wants to rebel, and he can never let himself quite rebel. Anyone else?
I hate breaking this up, but I lost my credit card. This is why I was late. I'm trying to track it down.
Oh dear, all right, I hope you find it.
I hope I do.
I hope you find it.
This, you might enjoy. It was in the time.
Oh, thank you. All right, let's take one more question if there is one. Yeah.
Did you go to Cornell?
No, I went to Yale.
Oh, well, so how did you, so he was, let's see.
Bloom was at Yale for a long time before he went to Cornell.
Oh, he was, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Total madman in those days. If somebody had said to us then that he would become the most famous and most read literary critic in America, or literary historian in America, we would have laughed. We expected him just not to show up in class any day because he was so weird. But
How was he weird? I met him, I didn't.
he wore these ratty leather jackets and tootled around campus on a bicycle and spoke like the poems he had us study. Whenever, this was the early 60s, whenever something politically unfortunate happened, he would say to us, "Gentlemen, we live where motley is worn," that is, where everyone's foolish. And you know, there were people who absolutely detested him because he was so affected, and other people who loved him because he was so affected. Anyway, all right.
Thank you.